killing almost 100 million people in the 20th century, and on the track to kill around 1 billion in this century. And tobacco control in Pakistan presents unique challenges shaped by social, economic, and health factors contributing to a fragile public sport system. As Pakistan grapples with high tobacco consumption rates, weak enforcement of tobacco control laws, and policy challenges, there's a need to address critical issues to drive meaningful progress in tobacco control. As you all know, that over 160,000 annual deaths per year in Pakistan are now putting an unbearable health burden, crossing Pakistani rupees around 700 billion as a health burden. So child smoking uptake is at an alarming rate, and the tobacco industry and marketers continue to flood the markets with new electronic nicotine and tobacco products. Tobacco taxation is a crucial aspect of tobacco control that effectively reduces consumption, deters initiation, and serves as a meaningful revenue source for the government. Yet in Pakistan, the effectiveness of tobacco taxation is often diluted by tobacco industry tactics such as front-loading, price smoothing, shrinkflation, and underreporting. Moreover, the absence of discernible tobacco taxation policy also hampers effective and progressive taxation. Similarly, the tobacco industry has been actively attempting to undermine the recently implemented tobacco track and trace system. Tobacco control cells, both the provincial and the federal, WHO and numerous civil society organizations are committed to enhancing tobacco control laws and ensuring robust enforcement aligned with the Framework Convention on Tobacco Control, which is commonly known as FCTC. This panel will explore a couple of things which I'll later let you know. For this discussion, we have with us Professor Dr. Zafar Mirza, who is a former Federal Minister of Health. We have with us Dr. Minhajus Siraj, who is the former Joint Executive Director of PIMS and currently the Executive Director of Health Syndicate. We have been online joined by Mr. Asif Iqbal, who is the Managing Director of SPDC Karachi. Dr. Amina Khan is the Executive Director of the initiative. We have with us Mr. Anis Ahmed, who is the Technical Lead of CTFK, which is Coalition for Tobacco-Free Kids. We have with us Ms. Sania Ali Khan, who is the focal person for STOP project. We have with us Ms. Asya Arif, who is the Executive Director of Spark. We have been joined online by Mr. John Thommy, who is from Kenya. And last but not the least, Dr. Wasim Iftikhar Janjua, who is the Senior Advisor I missed Ms. Elvina, who is also joined us online from the Kenya. And lastly, Dr. Wasim Iftikhar Janjua, who is the Senior Advisor at STPI. With this brief introduction, I would now like to ask the first question, and we'll go in a round of discussions, a 3 round of discussion. For the first, we have what are the global best practices in graphic health warning, plain packaging, and what are the impediments in opting for plain packaging? By the virtue of the presence of Dr. Zafar Mirza, I would like to request if he can answer this question first, and then we'll go for the rest of the panel presenters.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Am I audible, first of all?
Yes, sir, loud and clear.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much, and sorry that I couldn't be there in person for a pure logistical reason, which was not in my control. I would like to make few general remarks rather than just trying to address this specific problem of plain packaging or health warnings. मेरा ये ख्याल है जी कि सबसे पहले हमें ये देखना चाहिए कि पाकिस्तान में बावजूद इतनी ज्यादा प्रेवलेंस होने के और बढ़ती हुई प्रेवलेंस होने की कॉन्टेक्स्ट में why our tobacco control is not being effective. And I think this is a more fundamental question. Everything else feeds into this. And I think that even talking about specific control measures would not yield those results unless we try to first address the more fundamental issues in the tobacco control. From my perspective, I think there are two issues which we do not deal with. Any measure that you will take in tobacco control will not be sustainable. It will not be very effective. The first is related with governance. And in my view, I think unless we problem of conflict of interest in policy making, implementation measures, which is also a governance, yield those results that we all want to see. And with this, rather than just trying, which are important of governance related issues. Second, I think that, and this is, I want to make these two comments in the beginning so that the long queue of speakers that you have and the people who are more actively working on tobacco control in Pakistan currently, and I see a lot of senior people sitting around who have been around in tobacco control for decades, to also comment on what I'm going to say next. I think we need to move actually in Pakistan, and for that matter, in all low and middle income countries, and globally actually, following the example of New Zealand, I think we should stop talking about tobacco control and we should start talking about tobacco eradication in Pakistan. I think the businesses and the the revenue generation and the tax generation, all this needs to be fundamentally addressed in terms of eradicating tobacco and closing down these businesses over a period of time, and we should have a plan for that. बाकी जो हम specific बातें करेंगे FCTC से related different tobacco control की, even if they are effective, even if we are able to implement them, they will not yield those results that we want to achieve. Conflict of interest and eradication of tobacco. Conflict of interest में ये है कि actually the tobacco interests have actually permeated into at all levels through corruption in our system, at parliamentary decision making, in FBR, in all levels of at federal level, at provincial level, at tobacco board level. So unless we deal with these issues, we will be still not dealing with the real issue, which is there, which is killing people and which is damaging Pakistan economically as well as in terms of health. So I'll stop here. I don't want to take too much time. But in terms of setting the context, I think it is very important that how we want to frame the debate about tobacco in current Pakistan, in contemporary Pakistan, and not fool ourselves with tinkering with the edges of the problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Zafar Mirza, for setting the stage. And now I'll go in an order where we are sitting. Dr. Wasim, what would you like to say on that?
Yes, thank you very much, Wasif, for organizing this panel. So as far as the, I mean, all of us have very limited time here. As far as your question goes, warnings or health warnings on tobacco products, they are basically implemented under the 1979 law, which was made in Pakistan. Pakistan was one of the first few countries to enact the health warning on cigarette packs. And for a long time, it was just a textual warning. Then in 2010, we started placing pictorial warning also on the tobacco products or on cigarettes. Now we have been increasing the size of those warnings or pictures, and we have also been changing those frequently. The last time we changed it, it was in 2019. So it's been 5 years that the same picture has been displayed on the packs in Pakistan. Our recommendation would be to, one, increase the size from 60, it is 60% currently. So we can increase the size to say 95%. Or second, a better option would be to go for plain packaging. Most of the countries in the world are going with the plain packaging, and that is a drab brown color, which is a dull kind of brownish green color, which is placed on, which is an unattractive color for the youth. And that is placed on every pack of cigarette, and they cannot have any brand or any other names, just the warning, written warning, and then that color. So that would be my recommendation, that Pakistan needs to go a step ahead and start working on or start advocating the plain packaging. Thank you.
Sania, would you like to add anything to it?
I would just like to add that we of course we all know that we need plain packaging, we need to raise taxes, we all know this, and it is going to bring down the prevalence of smoking in Pakistan. But we also need to bring in other products now. It's about time. Other products meaning nicotine pouches, nicotine packages, HTPs, because eventually that is what is the new trend within the youth. And obviously the tobacco industry is trying to grasp its new clients, new customers, because obviously the old ones are going to, unfortunately, but they are going to die eventually. They need new clients. And what could be the best way of making these new clients, bring them into the circle, is of course showing them, telling them that what is new. So we know the nicotine pouches, we know HTPs, we know vapes, flavored vapes, flavored nicotine pouches. The government needs to bring that into its regulatory circle as well.
Right. Mr. Anis.
Thank you, Wasif. So first of all, thank you for inviting me to this session. And in terms of this particular question, I would like to remind and emphasize on the objective that we had an SRO which already was approved and published by the Ministry of Health, that said that the pictorial health warning size would be increased to 85%. But somehow we were remained unsuccessful in terms of its implementation, and the graphic health warning size is 60% for now. And it's been quite some years that the graphic health warning size has not been increased. And if we talk about the global health practices and the global examples, the Canadian Cancer Research Society has just published a report in 2023, by the end of 2023, which shows the impact of the increase of the graphic health warning size all across the globe. And this includes the Pakistan as well. So my take would be that yes, graphic health warning size increase definitely has an impact. And it definitely impacts the kind of a customer that is going towards such product. And Dr. Wasim Saab has very rightly pointed out that the government should be focusing more towards the plain packages, because the world is going towards the plain packaging at this point of time. And if not so, at least we should be focusing on increasing the graphic health warning size. It's quite some time that it is stuck at the 60%. And if we cannot implement the previous SRO of the 85%, at least there should be an increase more or less towards the 75 or 80%, if not 85%. And along with that, Sania rightly pointed out that, the youth is more focusing towards the new products. So where is the regulation of the new products? I mean, let alone these new products are not registered and they are not, well documented in our law. So when they are not well documented, how are we going to have the health warnings and the graphic health warning or the pictorial health warning kind of a discussion around those new products? So this is, I think, the high time that we should be focusing on these avenues as well, because FCTC very much focuses on these things, and it's a global phenomena that whenever you increase the graphic health warning size, it impacts the customer. Thank you.
Thank you. Before going to the next panelist, I would like to bring in the online participants, panelists. Mr. Asif Iqbal, if you can join in some.
Well, thank you. I'll just like to add a couple of points. Of course, there are no two opinions about the increase in the graphic health warning and also for the plain packaging. But I think we also need to see what other party is saying. The tobacco industry is saying. So basically, whenever we talk about plain packaging, so there are 2 to 3, arguments that they come forward. First of all, they talk about intellectual property rights infringement. So it's their argument that the plain packaging is against the property rights laws, international laws. It's not like I'm saying, it's the argument of the tobacco industry. And the second is that their argument is that the plain packaging usually it increases counterfeiting production of fake cigarettes, fake brands. So I think we need to talk about these things as well. For example, when we are talking about plain packaging, fortunately now Pakistan has track and trace system. So if we have a very effective track and trace system, then there will be no issue of counterfeit production. So these kind of argument that we should be putting forward to counter the narrative of the industry. And one thing that just Anis said, I was about to say, usually there is another argument from the tobacco industry that plain packaging, it has been ineffective in reducing smoking. So I think no, there is of course research, as Mr. Anis has just mentioned, but I think we need to do more research in this area, that how effective plain packaging or graphic warnings are in reducing tobacco use. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Alvina, would you like to add in something?
Yes, thank you very, very much for having me on this panel. It's a great honor. My name is Elvina Majiwa, based in Nairobi, Kenya. So regarding graphic health warnings, a bit of background to the Kenyan context is that we've not progressively been rotating the graphic health warnings. This year, we had public participation during our policy process, and our call to the government, to the Ministry of Health, was that they should increase the size of the graphic health warnings. They should be very visible. And one interesting take we had as young people was that they should include non-health warnings, such as quit, save money, because young people will be deterred from starting to use these tobacco products when they understand the economic impact that not using tobacco products will have. So thank you very much.
Thank you. John, I'll come later to you, and we'll, request you for a presentation also. So, Dr. Minhajus Siraj, sir.
Thank you very much. Basically, when we talk about graphic health warning, the best practices in the world, which are still in the developed countries, which are still practicing with the health warnings, most of them have these warnings on the front and the back of the packs. And this was 2011 when we requested the government of Thailand to give us copyrights for their graphic health warnings to be printed on the cigarette packs of Pakistan. and they were kind enough to share those. Basically, what plain packaging and other things in Pakistan's legislative setup and the implementation of policy things looks like a dream which is still far away, and that is what I'm sorry to say, but the matters, state of affairs which is going on for the tobacco control at the government level right now. So, but one day if we are going to have these plain packaging, then one thing that is to be added to those plain packs is an information about the quit lines, which are already established, but not being utilized up to their maximum potential. And when we talk about the interference of the tobacco industry, like my worthy colleagues have mentioned, there are so many legal challenges into that. And counterfeiting or illicit trade also is, you can say, advocated by the industry that it will become rampant when there are plain packaging. But I will share another interesting example of this graphic health warning, that how the tobacco industry flouts your laws and regulations. In 2019, there was a huge consignment of tobacco products at the Karachi export processing zone. It was coming from a neighboring country and it was being transported to all the Gulf countries. It was not manufactured in Pakistan, but it had all the cigarette packs, had the graphic health warning, which the Pakistan government has labeled it. Because of the tobacco industry in our neighboring country knew that our workforce in the Gulf countries will just go for the graphic health warning, which is there, which they recognize as their own country's warning, and they will buy those cigarettes. And that was very, you can say, actively being pursued. So it caught the eyes of the revenue staff, and then we stopped that practice. But still, you see how the industry plays around with your legal instruments and whatever plans you do. So with the officers from the stop here and good things coming out of their policies, we need to keep a check on those issues also. Thank you.
Dr. Amna Khan, would you please like to add?
Thank you, Asif, and thank you for the invitation. Thank you, Dr. Zafar Mirza, for setting the stage. And I would echo what Dr. Zafar Mirza was saying, that we need to be candid about this and start talking about eradication. Constant improvement in the best practices, like graphic and picture health warnings, and their size or color or change of pictures, that kind of improvements we have to be very, they are very significant, because we are a society, and in our context, we've become very complacent. And these kind of things, we have to keep moving forward from the research point of view, because if you're talking about the consumers and their behaviors. So these constant improvement, I'm going to the 75% of a graphic warning, which is like recommended from WHO. Please do correct me if I'm wrong. And now changing of the pictures is also very important, and hence leading to plain packaging, which is the way forward. And it's not, the high income countries like New Zealand, Canada, Australia, Saudi Arabia, they have shown that they make a difference, that we have to go through that way and then end up in eradication. So eradication is our end goal. But what challenges do we have? And I think we're talking about that, right? Where graphic health warning and plain packaging is. Tobacco industry tactics, like Asif said, they will, and this has happened not in, we have learned from other countries, this intellectual property thing, these cases will happen, but we are used to that. So we have to keep moving forward. The political will and the governance and a stability at that, and their commitment is actually the most important thing for sustainability, and hence being resilient and then leading to eradication, which I'm sorry to say we lack. We are, what do you say, the propaganda is, we are so dependent from the political and economic point, which the tobacco industry says that it generates revenue, and we are so dependent on that. So there are not, like, nobody makes those decisions. I don't want to go into what recently has happened, is because we started putting forward that we should make those 10 cigarette packs for export for other countries, just to generate revenue. So, the governance is so important. Their political and their commitment to it is very important if you're talking about sustainability. And yes, plain packaging is very important. And contextually, we are already started working, because we know that it's in the strategic plans of the government to look, start doing a baseline research on plain packaging, what the people of Pakistan, which color would be acceptable, which is not going to be acceptable. So we are already doing that. So I know the Pantone color, which Wasim was talking about. Yes, that has been adapted, but they have been adapted by different countries after taking the people, the culture, contextualization on board. So that work needs to start off now. We are doing it. Yes, that is the way forward. And thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Asia.
Right. So the question which is being discussed here is, what are the global best practices in graphic health warning and impediments in opting for plain packaging in terms of Pakistan? Global best practices तो बहुत हैं जी, ऑस्ट्रेलिया से स्टार्ट होती हैं, टर्की तक जाती हैं, and then you have Canada पहला था, and but of course Australia was the first country to really come up with plain packaging, and they did not really limit it to tobacco, your cigarettes, but then they also opted for plain packaging for heated tobacco products. What needs to be seen, and I would really second Asif Iqbal Saab from SPDC here, in addition to endorsing Sir Zafar Mirza here, that we really need to have some research around it, that what worked and what did not work. Like when I was in Turkey 6 months back, of course, we can see this plain packaging may not have worked for Turkey, but then there is always an argument and a counter argument to that. So what needs to be done is more research to be put into practice. And as a child rights advocate, as head of an organization that works for child rights and youth rights, and as a representative of SPARC, I would say I'm all for the plain packaging. And whatever are the impediments or the hurdles that really hinder it, that need to be tackled, and really that need to be done maybe with an iron fist, because we have not really been able to really, I mean, we have been able to raise awareness around it, but what are the practical solutions here? That needs to be seen here. And with the experts around, like Minhaj Saab and SDPI, we have campaign for tobacco free kids. I believe we have, and all the local partners from Cape Peace and Islamabad. I believe we have a good pool of resources in hand, and more research, more answers to the questions. That would be my response to that. Thank you, Asif. Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Asya Arif. Now the second point of discussion. I would like to take his presentation where we'll add the third point, because his presentation is more of like on tobacco taxation. And so the second question which I would like to throw here is that why banning new electronic nicotine products and tobacco products in global and Pakistani markets is vital, and which is vital to curtail, and eliminate the pandemic caused by the influx of these products. So here we'll go in inverse order. So Ms. Asya Arif, could you please, and if you don't want to answer this question, you can pass it on to the other panelists.
No, it's something that is close to my heart, because we have been observing it for the past for the past at least 2 to 3 years around children and youth as well. So why banning tobacco products is vital to curtail, eliminate. Now, given we were already struggling with cigarette smoking among youth and our children, and now this menace of HTPs came up. So I believe again, evidence is very limited, but then limited evidence or limited research does not really mean that we give up our fight over it. So there is a need to stick to our cause and maybe come up with better statistics. I believe survey by WHO is also in process. Once, we are able to get some statistics out of it, we'll be in a better position to work over it. But again, just to reiterate that in addition to our research and all, we also need public awareness and advocacy among the youth, so the issue gets highlighted among masses as well, in addition to experts sitting in a certain conference room. Thank you.
Okay. We're working in tobacco. So ends, whether they believe it or not, nicotine pouches are also, there are synthetic डेरिवेटिव हो निकोटीन या टोबैको से हो. हमारी सारी एफर्ट्स जो हम सिगरेट्स के ऊपर कर रहे हैं, अगर आप देखें जो यूज और जो पब्लिसिटी और जो एडवर्टाइजमेंट्स एंड्स के ऊपर हो रही है, एचटीपीज पे हो रही है, मतलब एंड्स एंड निकोटीन पाउचेस पे हो रही है, इट्स डाइल्यूटिंग इट. हमारी सारी एफर्ट्स डाइल्यूटिंग हो रही हैं. सो द थिंग इज वी हैव टू ब्रिंग देम अंडर द रेगुलेशन. There is no two ways about it. And then either that is one thought of bringing them under the regulation of tobacco products or food consumption. I don't know what consumer protection ke andar aayegi nicotine products. I don't know kiske andar aayegi, lekin they have to. And then there's another thought ki ban kar dein. India ne kar diya ban. We know that. Because dusri baat, Asya, there is a lot of evidence for ends. It's it is harmful.
For HTPs,
and for ends, it's harmful. And we all know about nicotine, that nicotine is addictive. And they are alternatives. Switching, people are switching. We are doing a survey in adolescents. The adolescents are so aware of these ends and nicotine pouches. They have been exposed so much that we've just recently done, hamare results abhi aane wale hain, कि everyone has heard them. Everyone has experimented, majority has experimented with them. So I don't know where this is heading. This is alarming the way it's happening, and we need to, otherwise to jo hum cigarette mein kar rahe ja rahe hain wo log, even the tobacco industry is shifting. Tobacco industry is behind all these alternate products because unhe pata hai ki this is the market. We are the 4th largest market for nicotine pouches, and we are exporting. So and this has just happened since 2020, within 3.5 years.
So Dr. Minhaj, please.
Thank you very much, Basit. When we are talking about these texts of the industry, why they felt a need to bring in these electronic devices and pouches. So what the tobacco control advocates try to console themselves by saying that the tobacco end game was near, and that's why the tobacco industry has changed its path towards these products. Again, another incident I would quote. When the Supreme Court of Pakistan, once it came hard on tobacco products, and they wanted the government to make strict laws and things about controlling this tobacco epidemic. Tobacco industry pitched in, and they created a deception for the Supreme Court through a very, very senior politician, lawyer, and who joined that proceedings as a representative of Shishas or Smokers Association. There was none of this type of association was existing. It was documented overnight, and the next morning it was presented to the Supreme Court that our rights are being infringed by these activities and all the controls which government is trying to impose on us. So luckily, the government was able to contest that deception, and the Supreme Court's bindings on tobacco control was still effective, and the case was case is still open. In the last order, it still said that whenever the tobacco control activists or the government wants to pursue this, it can again come back to Supreme Court for help. So that is again an option for us and for all of us, that if we are looking for an avenue, the avenue is still open, and I can share that final order of the Supreme Court with you. Everywhere, nicotine products and all these, you can say, and when we mention about the synthetic things, that is again a deception. There's not nicotine in these pouches is not synthetic. It comes from the plant source. And by far in this country, when we talk about to stop cultivating tobacco, that is in our cash-starved economy, it is a very cry in the wilderness. The government and the finance department will never listen to that. Of course, we have strong evidences. Our local theories and our research has proved that the health cost now exceeds the profits coming out of the tobacco industry, taxes and everything. But still, we have to make a point to the policy, not to the policy makers, rather to the decision makers, that yes, this has to be balanced somewhere in the near future. And when we talk about this, why we should still be, although we don't have a long-term research data available for these novel products, which have recently been in the circulation throughout the world and our major cities. But still, the harms caused by these products to the environment and the waste products which are being, can say, stashed everywhere. So when in a country like Pakistan, where we always can say, plead that our environment is being polluted by the rest of the world causing things, but we should also be checking on our own circumstances, that what in-house changes are bringing bad impact on our environment. Thank you.
Sir Asif Iqbal, if you can add something to it.
I think I'll pass to other panelists. Yeah, much have been said already.
Okay, I'll request Mr. Anis Ahmed to please add.
Thank you, Wasif. So yes, this question of these new nicotine products is, yes, it is the talk of the town. And it is unfortunate that we just had even bigger show than this conference in Islamabad by the Chinese companies about these nicotine products in Islamabad. And it was very unfortunate to see that happening in our capital city. And this is all because of the non-regulatory measures around these new products. I would call them so. I won't use the word of ban. I would use the word of regulation. I mean, it is up to the government as they want to regulate it. Either they want to go for a ban, or they want to put it under some policy mechanism. They want to make some restrictions in the law about the advertisement and the sale of these products. But at least there should be some mechanism. For now, these all products are having a free ride, and youth is very much attracted towards it. I mean, having a vape or a velo is not only the use of the product, but it has become somehow a fashion symbol in our elitist society. And youth, not only at the university level, but at the school and the college level, is also very much attracted towards it. And when we had our various sessions at different institutes, we got a lot of requests from the different schools that this is our burning issue and we need to sensitize this more. So my request towards the government should be that we should all, from the civil society point of view, we all should have a focus on concerning or raising our concerns towards the government to have some policy regulation around these products. Even the grab is when they are approached in terms of the testing of these products, they did not have the regulatory measures to test these products. They were unable to get it tested, and when they got it tested, and then their response was, these are the unregistered kind of a products which are prevailing in the market, and the Ministry of Health has to take some action about it. So I think probably it is the high time that along with tobacco, these new nicotine products should be the talk of our tables as well, so that there should be some policy formulation around it. Because when there is no policy, they are not only evading the tax, they are also enjoying the free ride in terms of no restriction in terms of graphic or pictorial health warning, or in terms of its point of sale. Now we are having a Velo station where our actors are also attracted towards it, and they are using these platforms to promote their messages. I mean, when you see an actor using these products, and when you see an actor or a kind of a brand ambassador to these products, the youth get attracted towards it. If not me, then an 18-year kid would definitely be get attracted towards it. So I think it is the high time that we should be raising our concerns. The government should somehow bring some mechanism to contain this thing. Because as we are trying to eradicate the tobacco and its consumption from our society, at the same time, the ratio and the numbers for these new products are increasing. And again, it is very unfortunate that we do not have any authentic number about the prevalence of these consumption of these new nicotine products in our market. We also need to have a focus on the research component about its prevalence ratio, because we have to sensitize not only to the youth but also to the policy makers in terms of its rising ratio in the society. Thank you.
Dr. Wasim, what's your take on it?
Thank you, Wasif. So very quickly, we need to understand that Pakistan is a party to FCTC, which is an international obligation on us to abide by many, or in fact all of the clauses which encourage parties to put a ban on these. So that is first thing. Second thing is that I want to very carefully and very clearly state here that there are all these pouches are nicotine pouches are extracted from tobacco. So all of these are tobacco products, because creating synthetic nicotine costs a lot of money, and tobacco industry cannot manufacture these pouches and then sell them at 100, 200 rupees price in markets like Pakistan. So we need to be very clear that all of these are tobacco products. They need to be regulated, and regulation also means ban. And it also means that you need to regulate their content and everything else. So when we as a country, we do not have a capacity to regulate these, we do not have labs to test these. So the best option for such low and middle income countries is to put an outright ban on these. Unfortunately, Pakistan or the government of Pakistan is charging taxes on these. On all your vapes or electronic cigarettes or all these products which are imported in Pakistan, tobacco industry is paying up to 65% taxes. On nicotine pouches, only this year, Finance Act of 2024, there was a tax placed on nicotine pouches. So if tobacco industry's argument is that if you are already charging us taxes, why do you want to ban it, or why do you want us to take it off the market? But at the same time, we are violating our international obligations, which is a binding on us when we signed FCTC. And we are not supposed to allow these kind of products to flourish in our markets. Thank you.
Thank you. Sania?
Thank you, Asif. First of all, a little bit of science that we all here, like we know that nicotine pouches, these HTPs, they have nicotine additive chemicals, including aldehydes, and all of these go into the bloodstream when inhaled, cross the blood-brain barrier, and of course, within seconds, it affects the brain and your blood cells. And according to studies, it does induce damage to DNA, decrease antioxidants, and affect the cells. So of course, something that is going to damage your DNA, automatically, it's a disease. It's not something that we should be promoting, or even I believe it shouldn't even be a talk of the town anymore. It should be completely banned. Also, these HTPs, these e-cigarettes, nicotine pouches, these are gateway to conventional smoking. Like I said, I mentioned earlier that the tobacco industry is looking for new customers. And according to WHO, 1,200 children from the age of 5 to 15 in Pakistan, they take up smoking every day for whatever reason, but they take up smoking every day. 1,200 children. That is not a small number of children, especially when you consider that they're all under the age of 15. We do have best practices, like Anna mentioned earlier. India has implemented a complete ban on electronic smoking. China has banned sale of flavored e-cigarettes. There are other many countries, according to WHO, there are almost 34 countries that have banned the sale of e-cigarettes and flavored vapes, etc. There are 74 countries that have no regulation on these products at all. And unfortunately, Pakistan is one of them. We do need to ban them, of course, to protect our children. Eventually, the end goal is to protect our children, no matter what topic we discuss on this platform. And of course, we did have, like, I'd say, a silver lining very recently, when in Peshawar, the provincial government banned sale of e-cigarettes to minors. I think it was below the age of 21, sale and storage. So I think that was a silver lining. That is something that we can look at, and maybe implement it in other provinces as well, implement it on federal level as well. And hopefully, like, we're not there, but we're on the way. We're on the right track. At least we know where we're going.
Very right. Thank you very much for sharing these alarming numbers and alarming facts as well, and pointing out towards KPK. I really forgot earlier that I missed to introduce our partner from KP, Ms. Sana Ahmed, who has joined from Peshawar, and she's a project lead at Blue Veins, and they're also working on this menace control. So Sana, would you like to add anything to this point?
Yeah, thank you very much, Wasif. Thank you very much, everyone. So just wanted to highlight what Sania said, because we are working with the KP government, and government, specifically the health department and the law department, they are very much interested to bring this legislation, as soon as possible in the KP assembly. And we are supporting them with the support of vital strategies. But the issue which we faced in the past few months, when the district administration of Peshawar, because they wanted to, also put provisional ban on the nicotine pouches, and they did. And then we saw the active influence and the tactful interference of the industry in Peshawar, how they reached out to the policymakers, and they were successful to, to influence the perceptions of the policymakers and the district administration, that how they could put ban on nicotine pouches, because the nicotine pouches are allowed and are not regulated or not banned by the federal government or by any other province. There is no such kind of directions available from any court or from any other government. So that was something, which actually also pitched the policymakers that, okay, if no other province is taking any action, or the federal government has not regulated or banned the nicotine pouch, then why Peshawar or why KPK is doing so? So, that was something which also created some problems, and like the government had to then reconsider their decision and the directions on the nicotine pouches. So I believe what Sania said, along with all these policy changes, we really need to have researches on this issue, the availability, the marketing, because the market of Velo and the nicotine pouches and KPK is now like it's a disaster now. You can say it's a disaster. Like, it's out of control now of the district administration, and it's not easy for them to tackle this issue. So it's very important to have a research on this as well.
Thank you, Sana. I'll get back to you once I am on the next point of global best practices on tobacco. Right.
Taking advantage of presence. I mean, it would be a good question to ask him whether or not that KP, good practice by KP can be translated into federal, your Islamabad, or whether it is possible, or there would again be some impediments or issues with that. Maybe Minar Sahib can share it.
So before closing, if
Also have some takeaways from this sitting.
Thank you. It could have been better, can say, understanding if somebody from the KP government was also part of this proceedings. When we started regulating this tobacco products and implementation of the tobacco control laws, so it was always projected that it's a healthcare is a devolved subject and the provinces should make their own laws. But we were able to penetrate the provincial governments, health departments, and district managements through a simple, you can say, circumventing the laws. And if the KP government has taken a good step, then yes, federal government should be welcoming that. We can always make a proposal for that and give a, can say, raise our voices together. And when we talk about being together, and I'm happy to see my friends from all these tobacco control, international NGOs and all the advocates on this table. And what we are trying to do is that when in the, you can say, the private sector or the social sector, these things can always make a case. And the government should be following the good practices being already implemented and bringing good results, if possible, at the provincial level. They can be replicated in the federal level easily.
thank you very much, Dr. Minhaj. Now, I'll come to the third point of today's discussion, and that is what are the global best practices in tobacco taxation, and how can a track and trace system strengthen and make tobacco control implementation and enforcement more resilient. And I'll directly go to my friend John Thommy, who has been waiting from quite a little bit of time, and he has a presentation to share. So John, over to you. But you have 5 minutes, up to 7 minutes.
Thank you very much. I've been following the engagement, and I must say it has been great, and sharing and learning from the experiences has been good. Kindly confirm if my screen is visible on your end.
Yes, it is, but you are on the 7th slide probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to probably update you on what I'll be presenting about, we did a study, a landscape study on novel products, which is actually a challenge to most of us across the globe. And this study was Kenya specific, although borrowing some literature just for comparison purposes and policy references from other countries. So the study was commissioned by National Taxpayers Association, NTA, where I work, and together with the Aga Khan University through their Brain and Mind Institute. And from the study, we were able to build a case for increasing taxes on cigarettes, vapes, and oral nicotine pouches in Kenya. So I won't dwell much on this, the taxation framework for tobacco products, which I believe, being well-seasoned people, researchers, government players within the tobacco space, you really understand that affordability of cigarettes is at the core of any taxation framework, because it directly affects the volume of cigarettes purchased. Increasing tax excise then takes us on course in terms of ensuring that we minimize the quantities consumed, as well as the increase in price of cigarette packs again affects affordability. and therefore the end game will be averting consumption of these products. So we also know that over time, studies have shown that there has been an increase in terms of consumption of tobacco and vaping products, especially among the youthful cohorts. So just an overlay in terms of tax and their ability to support consumption control of tobacco products. So in the Kenyan context, we are yet to meet the 70% to 75% taxes on the retail price of tobacco cigarettes based on recommendation by FCTC. And as the speaker who was able to set the tone, he was able to mention that we should be bold enough and move towards the end game in tobacco control, which we also agree to. When it comes now to novel products and nicotine liquids, again, in our context, these came out as a challenge, whereby we saw the trading price being less than the tax that is being charged on these products, which shows that there is an illicit component to it. When you move to oral nicotine, the taxes that are there are very insignificant and therefore make it more affordable, more accessible, especially to the youthful cohorts. And as you'll see from our findings, you'll be able to understand that for sure this is a challenge that we need to address. So on the background, and probably the numbers that might matter a lot to this is the second bullet, whereby we see these products being introduced in 2018 officially into the market. We know even before 2018, there are some jurisdictions that were already battling these products. But in our context, we pegged it on 2018, where the value was at around 11.5 billion USD. And in less than around 5 years, we had already seen the market value gained to 26, which is more than double the value of these products. So what really made us to look into this is trying to understand what are these ends and ends consumption patterns, especially in the resourced and less resourced, because these are some of the issues that will guide policy formations. Then the other issue was the population groups that usually target or consume these products, and the evidence in terms of illicit ends and ends consumption, and actually the policy recommendations that we will have. We were able to identify 7 policy findings, and one was on tax on nicotine projects being very minimal. And this was across board. Beyond Kenya, we also realized that the taxes are very minimal, to the extent that still there are people who are able to consume these products based on affordability. Then we also saw that the tax policies are not that effective. As you may know, the number of these products are quite huge. Their array are very many, and therefore enforcement becomes a challenge. In fact, most of our revenue officers, both locally in Kenya and even outside from literature, shows that they are not aware of some of these products, and therefore categorizing them and charging them, enforcing taxes on them becomes a challenge. Then there is also an evidence of illicit trade. So, and that's why in our policy recommendation, we are talking of the track and trace system, which has been very successful on traditional products. However, this has not been extended to nicotine pouches and some other novel products. Therefore, this poses a challenge. If at all we are able to adopt the track and trace, also extend it to these products, it will be easier for us to track and understand the origin and also the end consumers. Then the other issue is the evidence in terms of underage consumption, especially of oral nicotine pouches and cigarettes. So these products, due to shortage of existing policy regulation, then we realize that they're able to be traded online. Anyone can procure. Regulations in terms of age limits becomes a challenge, and therefore it made it very hard for enforcement of age limit consumption guidelines, and such. So the key takeouts that probably I picked from this study and also would want to share is that the e-cigarettes and vapes are consumed both by the resourced and less resourced region, but more in the resourced regions. Tax on nicotine pouches is very, very minimal. Then the vaping tax regime in Kenya and also in some other regions have not been designed well to support avert consumption, and therefore we call for an increase in that in order to reduce consumption. So there is need for aggressive taxation, the track and trace system to be expanded to cover e-cigarette products in order to minimize illicit trade. Then we should also have tailored messaging direct to the youth to caution them from consuming these products. Consistent data collection to monitor cigarettes, vapes, and oral nicotine pouches used in the youth population. So those are some of the references we've been able to as well publish in the WHO bulletin. You can able to get that paper and reference to it. And probably I know I'm remaining with some few seconds just to mention is that in our CSO groups in Kenya, what we call is a total ban for these products. And even if the government chooses to come up with regulatory procedures for the same, then our call is that we suspend the sale and of these products within our markets until that time where we can reach a consensus on what to do next. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you, John. Thank you for being so concise and so quick. This is probably the last round of discussion which I'll be able to make because of the shortage of time. So, Mr. Asif Iqbal, if you could add something to this point, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much. Since we are short of time, I'll be quick. So first of all, when we talk about global best practices in tobacco taxation, so what we see in the literature and also in the experience that we have in different countries. So there are at least two things that we can say are the best practices. One is that there has to be a specific excise taxes. These are much effective than the ad valorem taxes. So this is one thing. And we do have a specific excise tax in Pakistan as well. And the second thing is that the tax rates have to be regularly increased to keep pace with inflation and income growth. And of course, there are other practices like eliminating tax exemptions and reducing tax evasion that are more like a kind of an administrative things. But these two things, what we see are the global practices. And the third thing, which has now been very, recently introduced in Pakistan and also in other countries, is the track and trace system, that implementing the tax stamps. So, and of course, with the monitoring.
Sir Asif, your points are very valuable, and I would request if you can be a bit louder because you are not audible properly.
Oh, okay. Let me see. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's much better.
Okay, so very quickly, two things I said. One is that the specific excise taxes have been very useful in reducing consumption and globally. And the second thing is that increasing taxes regularly to keep pace with inflation and income growth, that are most important. And the third thing is, of course, which is new in Pakistan as well, recently introduced, is the track and trace system. So these three practices, I think, are very, very kind of have been effective in overall the countries and just in globally, but also in Pakistan. Just to give you one example, recent example of track and trace system in Pakistan. So we did a survey in before the price increase and before the track and trace system was introduced. So what we found, just to give you one example of one brand, which is Kisan brand, and when we did a survey, it's a low price brand. When we did a survey in 2021-22, so what we found that 95% of the packs were sold below the minimum price. And even below the taxable, at that time, the tax was 33 rupees per pack, plus 16% at that time, the VAT, which is the GST. So, but the packs were being sold and on average at 35 rupees. So 95% of the packs were sold below the minimum price. Then we did the survey after the tax increase in 2023, and also that company, Faber Tobacco Company, that was brought under the track and trace system. So now what we see that, the price below the minimum price, that has not declined to 35%. So that means at least 65% of their pack are being taxed. So what we see that tax evasion has been reduced. But now what we hear from FBR that all the companies are under the tax this TNT system. So I believe that this illicit trade will be reduced more effectively now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Asif Iqbal. Elvina, would you like to add something? I think she is, yeah.
Yes. Thank you very much. Just listening into the taxation conversation, and I'd like to just chime in specifically on my ask to the Pakistan government. We've had, so Kenya is located south of South Sudan, and there's been a conversation about the Pakistani government bringing in, exporting cigarette packages that are at the 10-pack cigarette package. So I just want to read out. Kindly allow me to share my screen just for a minute.
Screen allow karne? Okay. You're allowed to share.
Thank you very, very much. Yeah, so my ask to the Pakistani government is that we cannot justify profiting from tobacco exports while undermining global health efforts and targeting developing nations. Pakistan must stand firm in its commitment to tobacco control and reject any amendments that would make cigarettes exported to Sudan more accessible and affordable to children and women. This would be very crucial because we need to protect the next generation. There's a speaker that mentioned that all that we're discussing is that our need to protect children and youth, and generally the vulnerable population, is very important. So I join the other civil society organizations that wrote to the government of Pakistan to urge them not to make any amendments. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you, Elvina, for sharing this very heart-touching photograph. So, Dr. Wasim Janjua, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Elvina. You made my day. My just 2 points I would want to add on this third point that we're discussing here. One is regarding the track and trace system. Track and trace system was placed in Pakistan in July of 2022. And then we have been slowly implementing it, and there are apps available in which every citizen can download that app, and then they can check it online. If this particular product that they are scanning is legitimate or is an illicit tobacco produced or brought in the country. Transact is the name of that app that can be downloaded online and is available on FBR site as well. The second thing is that the aim of this, the basic reason for implementing this was that under Article 15 of the FCTC, we are supposed to have a track and trace system in place. And the protocol, which is further to a supplement to the Article 15, that also obligates that when the packs are being exported out of a particular country, they'll have a certain information. Now, unfortunately, our track and trace system has been implemented and is being improved every day. But all those packs which are getting exported out of Pakistan, they do not have that track and trace stamps placed on them. So this is really not comprehensible, that the same factory which is producing packs for the same for domestic consumption, they are placing some stamps on them, and then there are some packs being produced by the same factory which is not placing any stamps on them. So this is a bottom line in track and trace, that we must ensure that every single pack which goes out of the factory has a track and trace stamp, so that we can very easily gauge, or we can very easily find out what's the point of origin of this product. And that will also put to rest once and for all tobacco industry's argument of smuggling. My second thing, again related to tobacco track and trace, is that there is a need to place a track and trace system at GLTs, green leaf threshers. So every single piece of tobacco which is grown and comes out of the farm must go to GLT and get processed, get cleaned, stalks are separated, and then they are bundled up, then they are transported to the factories. So we must ensure that every product that passes through GLT, that is already traced. We know how much is the quantity which is being produced, and we know how much the factories are producing, the number of cigarettes that they're producing every year. In that way, they'll not be able to do the front loading or other shrinkflation or other tactics that the tobacco industry has to avoid taxes. Thank you so much.
So, Mr. Anis Ahmed, please.
So since I'm not the tax expert, I leave this subject to Asif Saab and Dr. Wasim, and Dr. Wasim has summarized it very well. I definitely endorse the comments by Dr. Wasim. And yes, track and trace system and its strengthening, yes, civil societies organizations are very much on for it. And it is again on the government and that how they, strengthen it more. Definitely track and trace system still is in its infancy, and FBR is trying to, strengthen the model. And we are very much supportive of that era. And government must ensure not only the track and trace system on the production of the cigarette side, but also at the crop side, as Wasim sir mentioned. And along with that, I would emphasize just one more line for the tax, that in terms of the global practices for the tax implementation on cigarettes, I must say that the tax policy should be consistent. We cannot just make a tax increase on 1 year and then we can be silent for another 3 years or 2 years in terms of its increase. And there should be a very good calculation and consideration of the adjusted inflation as well, since we are having inflation hit in the last couple of years. The tax increase of 145 or 150% in the last year, it has somehow diluted its impact because of this inflation and the purchasing power of a customer. So I must say that there should be consistent policy which should focus on consistent and gradual increase of taxes on cigarettes, and along with that there should be a very good calculated formula for the inflation adjustment for that as well. Thank you.
Dr. Amna, you have a very good grip on the subject.
Yes, listening to the gurus in taxation, I'm not going to say anything about taxation, but yes, the best practices are to frequently increase taxation and taking it up to 75% of the retail price. I think that's the best practice. I wanted to talk a little bit about track and trace system, and it works and it's been implemented after a lot of struggle. I think in 2022 it was implemented, and 2021 an SRO was passed. We did a study thanks to CTFK. They funded us a small study, and we were looking at as if it was July 2022 when it was implemented, and the cigarette manufacturers were asked to register their brands. So track and trace and registration of the brands was happening side by side. So we did a study just to get a cross section of what's happening in 2023 April. thanks to CTFK, they funded it. And we've just got it published about a few days back. So I just want to give you a little bit of what we found. I was reading my own article and I had to remember the numbers. There was a track and trace system. It helps to curb and keep a surveillance on the supply side and then see what's in the market. What we found out was that in April 2023, the overall, the packs which we collected, 32.4% was still without tax stamps. So I'm talking at a very early stage of implementation, not saying, obviously these things happen in a stepwise. So my point is here that we need to keep strengthening the track and trace system so it comes up. At that time, I think only 10 companies had registered their brands. I think total are from 19 to 22 companies. Then we also found out that 62% of the brands which we collected from waste recycle stores were lower than the minimum price written on them. So, एक तो ये चीज. The other thing is tax stamps में हमने ये देखा कि जो registered brands हैं उनमें भी कमी थी. Maximum were having tax stamps, but registered brands में 9-10% were still lacking. कि अभी तक a fixation tax stamp की नहीं हुई. जो मेन चीज थी, जो हमारे locally produced brands हैं, वो 90% were not compliant. Only 3 big companies के जो थे registered, उनके भी कुछ 9-10% था जो compliant नहीं थे. लेकिन जो हमारे locally produced, जो हमारे local हैं brands, हमारे international brands भी locally produced होते हैं, वो बेहतर compliant थे. But जो हमारी ये छोटी companies हैं, जैसे डॉक्टर आसिफ ने कहा, किसान and ये, oh sorry, so our local produced brands were 92% non-compliant with tax stamps, and it had been a year. It was mandatory for every company to have tax stamps fixed. So these kind of balances and checks and quality assurance, we have to keep on going to strengthen our track and trace system, because that is the way forward.
Very right. Ms. Askia Arif.
Yeah, I'll just, I won't be speaking on track and trace. That's not really my cup of tea, so I'm learning from the experts here. And for the taxation, Anis ne pehle bata diya, I was looking forward to raise this point, but then we need a steady increase in taxation at the federal budget, because at 1 year you have increase of 135%, and then next year you don't have any increase, so it just dampens the spirit of tobacco control activists here or the advocates here. So thank you.
Sana, you people have been working on this subject for a very long time.
Yeah, but I'm also not the expert of tobacco taxation or the track and trace system, but because being part of the policy discussions with the government on taxation and the policy changes, KP, recently KP government make a lot of progress on it. Like after 25 years, KP government increased the tobacco cess development tax from 6 rupees to 25, though it was raised to 50, but after the industry's challenges, the challenge of the tobacco growers in the government departments, so the government had to bring it down to the 25 rupees, but still it's a big progress, because after 25 years from 6 rupees, taking it from 6 rupees to 25 is a progress. And government is intending to increase it. So I will just as an activist, I just want to highlight here, and from this platform, government, all the governments, the federal government, provincial governments, they need to work for the uniform taxation policies in Pakistan, because of course in Empower R is something which is, we are very much lagging behind in Pakistan, and we really need to work on it. So KP can be one example again. Really want to highlight KP's work, though it was challenging, and it is challenging, it's still facing challenges, but still I think making a small efforts and a small contribution from one government can be an example for the other provinces as well.
Yeah, KP is of course a challenging province because of multiple reasons, I mean, but you people have made a lot of progress on it. Before going to Dr. Zafar Mirza, I would like to take remarks from Dr. Minhajus Siraj.
Thank you very much, all of you. And yes, for me, it's also a learning process, because tobacco control is an ever evolving subject. And especially for me. I like to learn everything about it. It's almost over a decade being associated. So when we talk about track and trace systems implementation, so it is only, you can say, part of the revenue being collected by the government, by a government of a developing poor economic country. That is what we are trying to get out of the industry, which is the legal right of the government. Even getting that legal right has been so tricky. What to talk about imposing more taxes? So basically, when we talk about taxing the tobacco industry, it has always to be two-pronged. One, what we are already having on the ground, whatever taxes are supposed to be collected by the from the tobacco industry, they have to come into the government's kitty. And then the government should have ample plans to increase those taxes, as my worthy friend mentioned about the inflation the country is facing for the last couple of years and so on. So matching the economy and the market of the country, these products have to be taxed more. But the government should have comprehensive plans beforehand, before the budget is, you can say, presented in the cabinet. And I would like to commend my worthy senior colleague, Dr. Zafar Mirza here. We made a very sincere effort in 2019's budget for imposing those health levies. It had its ups and downs, but still what the take-home lesson was that we should be very well aware of the taxation structure of the revenue departments. Until and unless we are very comprehensive knowledge of these, you can say, the processes, then the tobacco industry, which is already hunting for the loopholes, they find a big vacuum in our policies. And probably that also happened with the imposition of health levy, which we were trying to, you can say, follow the leads of Philippines and other countries imposing sin tax on the tobacco products. Because the health levy was a provincial subject and the taxation which we were supposed to collect, it was to go to the national, you can say, common kitty of the federal government, and then the NFC awards, federal government gets a chunk and the provincial governments get their part. And out of that, 45% coming to the federal government, out of that kitty, then there are about more than 30 ministries on which these 45% has to be distributed. The health share, then you have to have some solid proposals about utilization of these taxes which we are collecting from extra collection. If you want to get, you can always go for a government's policy, but then you should have a background prepared to utilize those taxes. So only then, and yes, the first thing is first that you have to impose proper checks and balances to collect that revenue which is supposed to be collected from the industry. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Manhaj. Yes, sir, you wanted to ask question? Sure. 5 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone, was the panelists and participants. My name is Janzev. I was ex-Chief Commissioner KP FBR. I've dealt with cigarettes, various capacities during my career. I think today's topic, as I correctly read it, it's strengthening tobacco controls. We have in place very prohibitive taxation rates. I know it in deep details. We have all the enforcement measures. A huge government mechanism is in place, FBR, We have health controls. We have warning on packaging, so many, but it's still not clicking. It's not working. Not to the desired level. It's not to the optimum level. But what I suggest that whatever damage this tobacco and the cigarette and all other products is causing to the society, Pakistan as a whole, and the youth and the adolescents and the elderly all, and the climate, it's contributing adversely to the climate as well, right from the production to the consumption stage. So why can't we introduce a redemption fund? We should make the cigarette producer to redeem that loss which is caused by them. And I propose the finance ministry, the health ministry, the climate ministry, and the FBR, they can put in place a mechanism to determine the extent of that loss. And then this tobacco producers should be made to redeem that loss, because I come to the very basic and universal thing. It's all about reward and punishment. It's all about retribution and restitution. They should be made to ensure that restitution for all the damages they are causing to the society, to the health damage, to the environment damage, and but to the mortality rate and whatnot. So it's like a universal loss and damage fund in climate we are seeing. I had given this proposal more than 2 years back in Serena Hotel. I think Dr. Zafar Mirza was sitting next to me, and he keenly observed all this, and he said, I will talk to some senior people in the policy making. And that was organized by SRPC, my friends, Dr. Safdar Suhail.
Right.
My postmate as well.
Yes, sir. Probably he's around.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's
So
one of
the problem is on enforcement side, what I have inferred out of your discussion. And we can have a bilateral discussion after this session. And of course, it's large domain, it's a broad subject, and they cannot be discussed within 90 minutes of time.
I feel unless they are made to cough out this money for redemption fund, I think we cannot strengthen our control in tobacco.
Very right,
This
sir.
should be the biggest measure.
Very right, sir. Among other worthy panelists, we have 6 researchers who are working on tobacco control, and I just wanted to let them know that Dr. Minhaj is a very senior colleague who has been the curricula at Johns Hopkins University includes his expertise and his subject and knowledge, which they share it with the researchers working on tobacco control all across the world. So his proposals should not be taken very easy, and you can consult him for anything you want to be on the tobacco control. Without further delay, I would now request Dr. Zafar Mirza for his closing remarks, please.
Thank you very much, Wasik. My voice is okay?
Yes, sir, it's clear.
Okay, thank you. Well, I have very attentively listened to the whole discussion, and I'm very pleased to know that the next generation of tobacco researchers and activists I was not very successful in provoking enough, most of you. Why I say this, because, and I'll be very brief, Wasik, don't worry. I'll just take 2-3 minutes. You see, as Dr. Minhaj just said, tobacco control is an ever-evolving area. So should be tobacco control advocacy. We should be also evolving correspondingly. Otherwise, we end up playing in the grounds of the industry, and we start tinkering with the smaller issues, losing the bigger picture. So in that context, I would again suggest that while it's very nice to discuss about plain packaging and novel products and how to regulate them and taxation, etc., and track and trace, but I think that we need to reframe our work on tobacco, and I think we should evolve from tobacco control to banning tobacco. And I think that it will be very helpful that out of this discussion today, from this meeting, if we can actually, make a recommendation that to the activists themselves and also to, publicize it, that the tobacco activists are also moving from tobacco control to banning tobacco and all the novel products. Now, obviously, one cannot be very naive when we say this, and one should not be very. It's a simple thing to say, but one should not be simplistic about it. Obviously, it's a long way ahead, but I think, like we say, that health for all by 2030 or universal health coverage by 2030. I think we should set a date, a year, that tobacco should be banned from Pakistan by this year, and then work back towards that deadline. And on this path, I think we should talk about all these plain packagings and all these other regulations. So these should be considered as a milestones moving towards a destination, and the destination should be that we should ban tobacco. We should ask industry to roll back their businesses and to save our people. The health costs and the health damages that this product is causing, I would say that we have failed to develop a case for that in the eyes of the policymakers. I agree with Dr. Minhaj that we definitely also need to understand the system better. Yes, I also agree with the benefit of the hindsight that in 2019, when we tried to, impose taxes, we were not as effective as we should have been. But having said all this, I think it is very important that we change the game. And the best thing will be to reframe the whole campaign. 2-3 minor points. One is that I think these novel products are, I think if they are being banned in other countries, I think we need to highlight those examples. And not only we should campaign for the banning, but also I think we need to also specifically speak with PEMRA. Part of the work should also be aimed at PEMRA, because increasingly I'm seeing that novel products are being, we used to call it product placement. So there is a lot of product placement in television dramas and different, and you still write smoking is injurious to health. So I think PEMRA also need to be taken to the task. And one thing which I have not really heard a lot, except the last few comments that Minhaj made, was that the whole discussion about tobacco taxation also needs to be coupled with earmarking of the tax revenues for health. Revenues collected towards of health policy, because Pakistan is I think these additional revenues should be used for health promotion, even if it's a federal policy making arena. But with after 18th Amendment, I think we need to move as much as possible to the provincial governments for their regulation and their stringency, which is needed in tobacco control. And last but not the least, this is my very long-standing, wish that in Pakistan one day, all the tobacco control activists, or tobacco ban activists, I should say, they should join hands build a strong case and go to the court with public interest litigation for the damages that tobacco has been causing over the years to the people and ask for damages. And I think the judicial activism that we see in Pakistan needs to be directed more towards such causes, such public interest causes. It's a rights issue, and the constitutional rights needs to be provoked for this right to life and a couple of others. And I think public interest litigation is in order here. So with this, I will finish my concluding comments. I end up learning a lot from this discussion, and I hope that there will be some report out of this time spent. And the points that few of the points which have come out from this discussion, including this movement from control to ban, will be highlighted in this. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Zafar Mirza, for joining us today and for your valuable suggestions. And now I would like to thank all the participants who have joined us on behalf of Sustainable Development Policy Institute. I thank you, Dr. Zafar Mirza, Dr. Minhajus Siraj, Mr. Asif Iqbal, and Alvina, John Thommy, Sana for coming all the way from Peshawar, Mr. Asia Arif for joining for the very first time, Dr. Amna Khan, Mr. Anis Ahmed, who has also joined for the very first time today, Dr. Wasim Iftikhar Janjua, who's an in-house resource, and Ms. Sania Ali Khan. Thank you for sparing time, and we'll hope that we'll come up with the document from all the suggestions we have got from your worthy discussions. Thank you once again, and sir, thank you very much for your points as well.